I think most likely, this is just about probability, there are many, many simulations. These simulations are, we might as well call them reality, or you could call them the multiverse.
These simulations you believe are created? Like someone has manufactured?
They're running on a substrate.
So...
That substrate is probably boring.
Boring?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Well, when we create a simulation, like a game or a movie, it's the distillation of what's interesting about life. I think most likely, if we're a simulation, it's really boring outside the simulation. Because why would you make a simulation that's boring? You'd make a simulation way more interesting than base reality.
Have you ever sat there and thought to yourself, what is real? Aside from your own perspective or what you could feel or see, that your eyes are just pockets of gel holding up a retina, carrying an electrical signal to your brain and releasing chemicals as you experience reality within your own brain. Isn't that some sort of simulation in itself? I can tell you have a computer screen in front of you or a phone in your hand. But is it really there? Or is that what it really looks like? Us as humans can only see an approximate 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. So that means that we see less than 0.5% of all the observable light in the universe. That is puzzling and unnerving that we literally wouldn't be able to comprehend in our minds, wouldn't have the capacity or the equipment to understand, or even the means on how to process the other kinds of light that exist in the universe. It would kind of be like explaining the color orange to somebody that was born blind. No matter how hard you try, he wouldn't understand. He couldn't. He wasn't born with working hardware to have a reference from. He has never seen. So even though you can make similarities in between senses to other colors, like red and fire, and blue and cold, he wouldn't have a grasp on what's really going on in reality, what he's looking at. Maybe like us. So now, how do we trust in what our perception of reality is? How can we be sure we're not part of a game or simulation of some sorts? I mean, does it really sound that crazy? For example, right now, we are running millions and millions of simulations at a time, whether it be big or small. From someone playing Tetris on their phone, trying to beat their personal high score, to a multiplayer online RPG game where people are creating an online community with real combat scenarios in stunning detail. We are already so close on a gaming standpoint not to be able to differentiate reality between simulation. And we are creating immersive experiences with virtual reality hardware. Could it really be that hard to imagine that we're already plugged in some way or another? Could our atoms or our bosons, the smallest things that we can visualize, be some sort of a bit or pixel that builds our world around us? Could the speed of light, the thing that Einstein theorized to be the max speed that we could travel at, be something like our max processing power for the simulation that we're running in? Also, our simulation wouldn't be perfect. Just like a video game, we would experience glitches and bugs in the form of deja vu, coincidences, paranormal things, premonitions, or even the Mandela effect. According to Nick Bostrom, a Swedish philosopher coming from the University of Oxford, in his simulation argument, he basically states that if a society becomes technologically advanced to the point to create a simulation, one of these three scenarios would take place. The first one would be that we would destroy ourselves or something would happen before we got to the simulation and we never created one, such as a natural disaster like a flood or something man-made like a nuclear winter. Scenario number 2 would be that we do reach technological maturity, but we just choose not to pursue simulation due to other circumstances or lack of interest in that. Maybe because there was a natural disaster and they had to rebuild, or there was other technologies that were more important than us. And the third scenario, by far the most interesting one, would be the one where a civilization did create a simulation and continued to do so, in which case we are most likely now to be in a simulation, some kind of ancestor simulation, where we would be one part of endless simulations with slight variations, kind of like a multiverse. If that is the case, researchers have estimated that if this is base reality, the odds are 1 to 10 in the 36th power, which is a ridiculous number. So just wonder about this. For almost 14 billion years of the existence of the universe, could we, human beings, be the first creature to show intelligence, create, build, and improve? That's 14 billion years. And even if you believe the Sumerian texts, we've only been around roughly 12,000 as a modern society. So that means that the rest of that time, there was absolutely nothing. And now, even if only on this planet, with all our advances in technology, medicine, agriculture, computation, now with 3D video, games, computers, CGI animation, online role-playing, dating apps, sophisticated multi-processing plants to create anything that we would possibly need. The fucking internet in itself, for God's sakes, and much, much more. And most of the things that I mentioned have only been created in the last 40 years. It seems pretty crazy to believe that in all that time of existence, that we humans have advanced in such an exponential way in a short period of time, and nothing else has. And let's just say you don't buy into all this us being a simulation stuff. You should know that with quantum computing and gaming advancement technologies keep moving in the direction and the way that they are, we should have a sub-reality within the next 20 years or so. That means if we're not simulated, we will become the simulator.
None of this is real. You pull the plug, I disappear. And nothing I ever say, nothing I ever do, will ever matter. Why don't you find my user? I'm sure he's a much better catch.